channel. Today we're in Margate. This is the first in my mini-series, Historic Margate. I'm standing outside the Old Baptist Church. We're about to take a look around the Old Town. Now, Margate started out as a fishing village, and in Anglo-Saxon times it was known as Margate, which translated as Sea Gate or gap in the cliff. Now, there's evidence that Margate has been inhabited since prehistoric times, with artefacts from the Bronze Age having been discovered during archaeological digs. In Roman times, the nearby Wonsum Channel was an important maritime route, and Roman artefacts suggest that Margate was used as a minor landing place. By the 8th century, the Anglo-Saxons had established a fishing community, and the village was known as Margate. So let's take a look at the Old Town and at some of the important landmarks that we have today. Margate has a lot of these interesting blue plaques with swans on. So we'll have a look at this one. Phyllis Broughton, a Gaiety girl, lived here. This is the corner of New Street. Situated on Hawley Street, Margate, on the corner of New Street, India House was built in 1767 by Captain John Gould, a successful tea planter in Calcutta. The architectural historian Sir Nicolaus Pevner described India House in the Buildings of England as the best house in Margate. In the early 1900s, the house was owned by the celebrated Gaiety girl Phyllis Broughton, who was described as the toast of toasts among young London clubmen. Phyllis Harriet Wright Broughton was born in 1862 to a theatrical family and studied dance during her childhood. By 1880, the 18-year-old dancer and actress with a bright and happy nature was established in the Gaiety Company, and by 1886 was widely regarded as one of the most beautiful women of her day. Phyllis became engaged to Lord Dangan, eldest son of Earl Cowley, who was 4 years her junior. He broke off the engagement, and in 1888 she successfully sued him for breach of promise, receiving damages of £2,500. In the Victorian period, actresses had a reputation for targeting wealthy men, and Phyllis received backlash from the press, who suggested that she was copying the actress May Fortescue, who received a large payout from Earl Cairns in another breach of promise case. Soon after, at the height of her fame, John Headley, a wealthy collier owner from Northumberland, fell in love with Phyllis and they became engaged. However, in 1889, a few days before the wedding, Phyllis jilted him in a curt telegram cancelling the engagement. John Headley had built and furnished a lavish home called Longcroft for Phyllis in Hayes, Kent. He never married, nor did he live at Longcroft, but he always kept the shuttered premises in perfect repair and employed 6 gardeners to tend the 14 acres of land. On 12 October 1897, Dr. Robert Thompson of Elmhurst, Grosvenor Place, Margate, sold India House to Lieutenant General Coote Synge Hutchinson, who in his 20s was a major in the 2nd Dragoon Guards and was awarded the Indian Mutiny Medal with Lucknow clasp for his service at the Siege of Lucknow during the Indian Mutiny in 1857. However, less than a month after purchasing India House, the Lieutenant General passed it to Phyllis Broughton, and the indenture states that the money used for the purchase was in fact the proper money of Phyllis Broughton. She had asked Coote Hutchinson to make the purchase as her trustee. Interestingly, Synge Hutchinson was Phyllis and her sister Haydie's stepfather. He had adopted Haydie in 1883 and 5 years later married their mother Emily, and the 4 of them lived at India House. The General died in 1902. When the census was taken on the 31st of March 1901, he was head of the household at an address in Westminster and resident with Emily, Haydee and various others, while on that same evening Phyllis was the sole occupier of India House. The census describes her occupation as of independent means and aged 35 when she was actually 39. In January 1917, the 55-year-old Phyllis married Dr. Robert Thompson, the previous owner of India House and a long-term admirer, at the parish church of St James, Piccadilly. His residence was Ivy Dean, Swain Road, Margate. She gave her address as Swallow Street, Westminster, although she remained the owner of India House until her death in 1926. However, despite this, John Headley continued to send Phyllis a basket of fruit and flowers cut from the gardens at Longcroft every week, even though they had never met again after Phyllis had called off their betrothal. And his last gift was sent when Phyllis was dying. His love for her was a true one until the end of his days. The house is now the Margate offices of Boys and Morn solicitors. The first building we're going to look at is the old Tudor House on King Street, which is just down here. This behind me is the Tudor House. This is under renovation at the moment. Now, it had one or two features that were unique at the time, actually quite groundbreaking, such as the twin chimneys and also the fact it was two-storey. And the ceilings in this are Jacobean with fleur-de-lis and Tudor roses and dolphins. This place dates back to 1525 and was the home of a yeoman farmer who was quite affluent and would have made decisions on the local community in his role as a yeoman. And it's got beautifully landscaped gardens as well. It's like a cottage garden format. And you'll see below the basement level they've got these stained glass windows, which you often see on buildings in Thanet, where you've got the different shades of, say, yellow and blue in a pattern. That seems to be quite a common theme here, which probably harks back to the maritime element of the area. So when it's open, they've got examples of censuses from the 1800s and 1900s, so you can track what happened to the house over the later period. But it's a very fine building. People can also dress up in Tudor costume. You'll see, look at the roof. It's quite an old roof, which is probably also being restored, but all the plasterwork outside needs restoring as well. Now, another feature of this is the fact that instead of one large hall like the typical Tudor buildings, this is one of the first examples where the trend was going towards several smaller rooms rather than just the one big space. Also, this residence had one of the earliest examples of double glazing. So this place is unique. It's still standing and it has all these groundbreaking features. And I'm so pleased that it's being restored for future generations to explore and appreciate. This is the second major renovation plan in the last 100 years, because it was rescued from demolition in the 1930s and restored and then opened up later for public to appreciate. These are the Margate Caves. These are right on the edge of the Old Town at 1 North Down Road. If you go further up the road, you go to Cliftonville, but that'll be in another episode. Anyway, these caves started life out as a chalk mine, and in 1863 became a Victorian attraction. Now, the caves had been disused for about 100 years before they were made into a tourist attraction. The caves were restored between 2011 and 2019 and are now a really interesting tourist attraction, so people can explore, go underground, explore the tunnels, and also find out more about life in times long past and study lots of different archaeological artefacts, including those from Anglo-Saxon times. Days, anything such as a court or a yard or a place, for example, would have been tenements. So poor people would have lived here. You would have had narrower entrances. This is a lovely example of an 18th century cottage. The flint walls were a key feature in the 17th and 18th centuries, especially in Thanet. And you'll notice the Dutch style gables on each end, and there's been a plaque somewhere at some time there, which is now sadly worn away. This place won an award in 1982. This blue plaque is to Francis King Cobb, 1727 to 1802, banker and brewer. Hence, the property that we've seen is named after him. Baptised at St John's Margate, he took over the lease of Margate Brewery around 1761. Who rang me? Miss Robin or Miss Minky? An example of window tacks. There's a window bricked out there, and now we've got a love lane. Now the love lane in Kendal Lake District is called Finkel Street. Means the same thing. And here we are at the Margate Museum. Now this used to be a magistrate's court and also a police station. It's undergoing renovation at the moment. They've got some cells underneath as well, which we've seen. Dan and I used to come here for music recitals. When it's open, there's also lots of displays you can look at, and also artefacts found in archaeological excavations in the Margate area, including those from the Bronze Age. The last use of this place was as the Old Town Hall before it became a museum. Obviously it's a shame it's empty. It's been empty for quite a while now. Renovations are ongoing. I'm not sure how far the project is likely to go. Hopefully it will open up again in the not too distant future, but as always there's funding issues with these things, especially when quite an amount of work needs to be carried out. But there are some fine examples as well of the maritime history of this area when it is open. I'm hoping it does reopen because the music recitals were brilliant and you were surrounded by all the history as well whilst listening to lovely harpsichord music. Marx stayed here in 1866. He also stayed in Ramsgate, as we have seen previously in my historic Ramsgate series. This shop is Ramsay and Williams. Canon Richard Barham lived here. He was an English cleric, novelist and humorous poet. He was known generally by his pseudonym Thomas Ingoldsby and was the author of Ingoldsby Legends. Prince Frederick, the Grand Old Duke of York, 1763 to 1827, lived here. The Old Kent Market is a major landmark in Margate. You can find vintage items, new items, there's a bakery, and it also happens to be the home of the UK's smallest pub. This used to be a cinema. Let's go in and have a quick So we've got lots of shop units on the first floor level, and then on the ground floor level you've got the food businesses, you've got the bakery. That used to be Gina's Bakery. They've not got much left, so they're obviously very good. The Little Prince is the smallest pub in the UK. Did you want a drink?
Yes, that'd be nice.
We've got time for a quickie.
Yeah.
is the Turner Contemporary Art Gallery, which was designed by David Chipperfield, and today is one of the most important landmarks in Margate. They've always got interesting exhibitions in here. They've had Tracy Emin, they've had JMW Turner watercolours in here. There's a really interesting window as well, which is well worth looking at. And there's a cafe, and they host weddings, so it's a major landmark on the Margate landscape. And the gallery stands on the site of Mrs. Booth's boarding house. Now, Sophie Booth was twice widowed, and she was the partner of JMW Turner. So whenever he came up from London, he used to stay here with her. And he was in the area for about 20 years. Anthony Gormley, the statue, was not at home. He was covered by the water because the tide was in. And talking of Sophie Booth, this shell lady was created in 2008 by the artist Anne Carrington. It's a tribute to JMW Turner's partner, Sophie Booth, who was born to German parents in Dover in 1798 and later came to Margate. She married a local fisherman in 1818 called John Henry Pound. In 1821, her husband drowned at sea, leaving her with two sons, Daniel and Joseph. But Joseph died before he turned 6. Then she married John Booth, and they established a boarding house on the seafront in the town. They had a son, John Pound Booth, in 1826, but he died later, aged 10, from cholera. In 1828, Turner started coming to stay at the Booth guest house because the quality of light in the area fascinated him and inspired several of his paintings. After her husband died in 1833, Sophie and Turner started a relationship, and whenever he was up in Margate from London, he used to live with her. Although they never got married, they always referred to each other as Mr. and Mrs. Booth. Isn't that a lovely story? Here's where our tour today ends, but we hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of Margate and learning a bit about the historic buildings here, of which there are many, and there's lots more stories to be told about this area. But do let me have your comments down below. What did you like to see best in this video? And then please give it a like. Please share and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. Ring that notification bell so you can be made aware of any new content I have on my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for the next video. Until then, bye for now.